The Pavo Pico 2. This drone is 84 grams in weight and produces footage like this. Technology really is getting crazy. So I previously reviewed the first version of this drone that had an O3 air unit on board, and also more recently the bigger brother of this drone, which is the Pavo 20 Pro version 2, which has an O4 Pro air unit on board. Now the Pavo Pico 2 has the capability to be flown with an O4 Pro air unit as well, but I think the main reason you would get a drone like this is to keep things light and agile as possible, and for the best performance you'd want to use the light version of the O4 air unit, which is known as just the O4 air unit confusingly, rather than the O4 Pro air unit, which is the big version. BetaFPV do provide you with the bracket as well when you buy this drone to use either, but in this video I'm only going to use the O4 air unit and not the O4 Pro, because I just feel like that's what this is primarily designed for, to fly, as the O4 Pro air unit requires stronger motors on the drone and more power. Therefore, if you really want to fly the bigger O4 Pro air unit and have all the benefits of that ETX, you're probably going to be better off buying the bigger brother to this, as I mentioned before, the Pavo 20 Pro version 2, which I have actually made a video on previously, which I'll link down in the description. If you want to find out more about that drone after watching this video, you can go and do that. This drone is largely the same as the previous version of the Pavo Pico, except for this top bracket and the way it's mounted. The first version of the Pico had a big issue with jello in the air unit footage because of the way the bracket was mounted to the drone, which meant that if you screwed the camera screws on too tight or even too loose, which was not able to be fixed in gyroflow, even if you record unstabilized and tried to stabilize in gyroflow after, the jello was so minor that it would just show up even in the post-stabilized footage. So this new version uses these bigger rubber bobbins that are much larger than the standard little grommets and seem more durable, and these soft mount the air unit to the rest of the frame really well. So the whole air unit and the camera is soft mounted, making the footage out of this completely jello free from the off, with no adjustments needed, no banging your head against the wall frustrations, no having to search YouTube videos on how to get rid of jello from your Pavo Pico footage. This is definitely a massive improvement that BetaFPV have made, so well done on that one, guys. The thing that's always so fascinating for me with the Pavo Pico line is just how insanely tiny the drone is, which I mentioned on my previous review of the first version of the Pavo Pico, that it just makes it much less threatening to get cinematic shots in places you wouldn't really want to risk flying a bigger drone, more expensive, something like this, or even an Avata 2, for example, which is much bigger and noisier. And also now with the ban in the States making DJI Care Refresh completely obsolete, flying an Avata 2 becomes scarier. If you crash it, you better be able to repair it yourself. Otherwise, you may end up having to throw that expensive drone away completely. With something like this, however, you can risk it more, which is what I like and what I think FPV is all about. Taking risks, hitting small gaps, flying fast and low, and maybe even doing a few loops and dives if you can. As I've said before, drones like this look more like something I got my son for his birthday and he's messing around with in the back garden, rather than a drone that captures high quality 4K footage. When it comes to the battery life, the recommended 550 milliamp hour 2S lava batteries from BetaFPV give about 4 to 5 minutes of flight time, depending on how you're flying it, how aggressively you're flying it, how much you are punching up the throttle. If you do compare that to about 5.5 to 6.5 minutes on the Pavo 20 Pro version 2 with 3S batteries, then you realize it's one of these quads that are for short cinematic flights, so definitely don't be flying it too far away from yourself. It's definitely not a long-range drone or even a mid-range drone, because if you do fly out too far and you find out that you may not have enough battery to return, especially quads like this that on the lower end of the battery, they decline very quickly. Generally, it's for short proximity flights close to yourself. The signal strength as well is not as strong as an O4 Pro air unit that has dual antenna that stick out the back and also stick out much higher than this single antenna does. So that's another reason. Be careful, don't go too far away from yourself if you are going to be flying this drone. I do, however, love this battery cradle that they put on the Pavo Pico line, as opposed to battery straps which they have on the Pavo 20. I just haven't always been a big fan of battery straps really when it comes to FPV, and most drones seem to have them. But yeah, I feel like this with the cradle, it just feels so much more secure and the battery is just not going to fall out. If I'm honest, I feel like this drone most of the time you'd get it more for like indoor flying, just because of the size and the weight and the non-threateningness of it. You want to fly it close to things and people, as it's so lightweight, it's not going to cause hardly any damage if you do crash, compared to the bigger brother Pavo 20 or even bigger Avata 2. The outside flying of it so far in my experience, similar to the first version, is if there's basically no wind, it's fun. It's fun to fly outside of it. Its lack of power and the lightweightness do make it a struggle in breezy and windy conditions. It does get pushed around, and there is a lot of prop wash as well, is if there is breezy and windy conditions. So for those times, you're better off pulling out the Pavo 20 Pro or something bigger. A few other factors you should also be aware of if you do take the Pavo Pico and fly with the recommended O4 air unit over the O4 Pro air unit is you will be sacrificing things like the wider field of view that you get with the O4 Pro air unit, the flat color profile. This one just has a normal color profile, which I do actually really like, to be honest, but you don't have that flexibility for grading that you do with the flat color profile of the O4 Pro air unit. Also, you don't get an SD card slot with this. You get 25 gigabytes of internal storage, which is a lot more than the O4 Pro air unit gives you. Only gives you 4 gigabyte of internal storage, because I'm guessing they are expecting you to use that with an SD card, and as this doesn't have an SD card slot on it, 25 gigabyte of internal storage, which is pretty good. And me myself, I'm actually quite a big fan of internal storage on drones and cameras, as I just don't really get on very well with micro SD cards. Yeah, either end up forgetting them or losing them, or however, as I said from the beginning, you can use the O4 Pro air unit with this quad, as well as it does have a bracket for it included. I just personally wouldn't recommend it. So overall, with my short time so far with this quad, as I only received it about a week ago, I really enjoy flying it in close proximity, and I don't feel any nerves flying this quad, if that's the best way to describe it. Because with FPV, no matter how long you've been doing it, every time you do take off flying in manual mode, you do feel a bit of nerves, but this one barely any. Like, it's just very low risk. I'd say the drone sort of sits in that range between a complete beginner kit like the Aquila 16 or Aquila 20 kit that I've also reviewed recently, and a more professional drone like the Pavo 20 Pro version 2 or Avata series of drones, as the video quality is good but not quite top of the line. It's a 1/2 inch sensor compared to a 1/3 sensor, and this is reflected in the price, I guess, as it's $224 this compared to this, which is $365 on the Pavo 20 Pro 2, and that's mainly down to the increased cost of the O4 Pro air unit over the O4 air unit, as without these they actually both curiously come in at the same cost, even though, you know, this one has bigger motors, bigger frame, just generally bigger. Like, they both $105 on the BetaFPV website. But yeah, this quad is super stable in the right conditions, i.e. not too much wind, and takes up hardly any space in the bag. So it's great if you just want those quick FPV shots in your videos here and there, or just want to practice a bit more before you step up to something bigger, or you just want to have that risk-free feeling, be able to go all out and have fun, do your flips and rolls and dives and fly in those kind of little areas that you wouldn't normally consider flying something bigger. Yeah, it's good for that. As always, repairs of this drone and the other Pavo drones are readily available and very cheap on the BetaFPV website. So crashes to the frame or broken motors, etc., can be fixed literally the same day if you've got those spares in stock, rather than having to send it out somewhere to be fixed, which again, in my opinion, adds to that true FPV drone flying experience. Crash, break, fix, fly, repeat, you know, that's takes me back to the early days. With all that being said, if you are looking to get the best image quality out of a sub 250 gram FPV Cinewhoop, then go check out this video on the Pavo 20 Pro 2, which I made not too long ago, and you can make your mind up on which one you think you want to buy.